Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating philosophical framework by the author Zhu Feng. He's tackling what is arguably the biggest, oldest question in human history. What is the actual meaning of life? We're going to map out the journey he presents in his writings, and it's a wild ride. We start at the absolute highest peaks of human success and wealth, and we end up in a seriously surreal cosmic parable. It's an incredibly thought-provoking progression of ideas, so let's dive right in. 300 million Hong Kong dollars. Now, that is not just some random made-up number. That staggering figure represents the fortune accumulated by the late, incredibly famous music and film megastar Leslie Cheung. According to the source material, Cheung was a guy who, for all intents and purposes, had it all. Literally. He was a celebrated actor with just a mountain of awards. He was a total giant in the music industry. He was famously surrounded by brilliant, beautiful people. I mean, by every single conventional metric our society has, this number represents a life most of us can only dream about, right? He basically embodied wealth, honor, beauty, and romance all rolled into one extraordinary existence.
But here's where things take a really jarring turn. The contrast here is almost impossible to wrap your head around. On one hand, you have that ultimate success we were just talking about. But on the other hand, you have his ultimate end. At just 46 years old, literally at the absolute peak of his prime, Leslie Cheung made the tragic choice to leap from the 24th floor of a hotel, ending his own life. The author uses this incredibly tragic reality as a massive anchor point for his whole philosophy. It forces us to ask, why on earth would someone who has seemingly completely won the game of life choose to just walk away from it so abruptly?
Well, to get at that, the author introduces what he calls the Leslie Cheung phenomenon. And this phenomenon highlights a really tough pill to swallow. These 5 traditional pursuits, wealth, power, status, honor, and beauty, they absolutely do not guarantee a life of joy, freedom, or fulfillment. I mean, for centuries, we've basically been told to spend our entire lives chasing these 5 things. We hustle, we grind, we stress ourselves out, all under this grand assumption that if we just get a little more wealth or a little more status, we'll finally be happy. But Zhu Feng argues that this tragedy is the ultimate proof that these societal benchmarks, they can't actually provide a wonderful life, much less secure any kind of lasting spiritual peace.
So the really crucial takeaway here is that the modern internet's complete obsession with achieving financial freedom is, in a lot of ways, just a giant illusion. If you spend any time online these days, you are constantly bombarded by gurus screaming that financial freedom is the ultimate finish line, right? The story goes that once you hit that magical number in your bank account, you automatically unlock this perfect, joyful life. But if we look at the lessons from Cheung's life, we realize that financial freedom does not guarantee a complete life at all. You can literally have $300 million and still feel utterly devoid of meaning.
Which brings us face to face with an incredibly bold, fundamental question. Does life truly have meaning at all? Because if checking all the traditional boxes of success doesn't actually work, then what exactly are we supposed to pursue? How are we supposed to live? Let's use this question as a bit of a mental palate cleanser. We're about to pivot completely, moving from a very real, very human tragedy into a totally unexpected scenario that the author uses to explain our existential blindness.
Section 1. The Parable of the Pigs, a Cosmic Perspective on Purpose.
Okay, so to really grasp this, we have to shift our perspective entirely. We are dropping down from the glittering heights of celebrity wealth straight into the mud of a pigsty. It's a surreal allegory, but it brilliantly illustrates this concept of localized, limited meaning. Picture this, a sty with 10 pigs, and they are deep in debate over the meaning of their lives. The old pig grunts and says, "Look, life as a pig has no meaning. We just eat, sleep, and roll around in the mud. That's the whole show." But then a board chimes in and strongly disagrees, arguing that mating is obviously what gives life meaning. Finally, a little piglet squeaks up and says that drinking its mother's milk and playing with its siblings makes life super meaningful. To these pigs, this muddy sty is their entire universe. They're debating the meaning of life based solely on their immediate biological experiences, completely oblivious to the actual reality existing right outside their fence. Now, let's zoom out a bit. The pig farmer overhears this philosophical debate happening in the mud, and he literally can't help but laugh out loud. From his vantage point, the pig's arguments are completely ridiculous. His perspective is brutal and direct. What do you know about the meaning of your existence? Your purpose as pigs is to grow fat so that I can slaughter and eat you. The farmer represents this higher power to the pigs. He's operating with a totally different, entirely transactional view of why they exist. The pigs think their meaning is rolling in the mud. The farmer knows their actual, literal purpose in his system is just to become food. It's a massive reality check that instantly shatters the pig's entire worldview. But wait, the story actually gets crazier. Now, a Buddha enters the narrative. The Buddha overhears the farmer's thoughts, and just like the farmer laughed at the pigs, the Buddha finds the farmer completely laughable. The Buddhist perspective is this: raising pigs is your duty, sure, but slaughtering and eating them negates your merits. From then on, you'll have to start over from zero. So suddenly the farmer, who was so smug thinking he held the ultimate truth about the pig's existence, is exposed as being totally ignorant of the larger spiritual consequences of his own actions. He's completely blind to a much higher layer of reality.
And finally, we zoom all the way out to the ultimate cosmic view. The pigs, desperate for some real answers at this point, kneel down and plead to the greatest creator. And a booming voice echoes from the heavens, dropping this massive truth bomb. As pigs, your existence is to repay the debts of your past lives, where you lived recklessly and harmed other living beings. By living as pigs and settling your debts, you can be freed from this existence and reincarnate as humans. According to the creator in this parable, that is the entire meaning of their lives. It wasn't about the mud, it wasn't about being the farmer's dinner, and it wasn't even just about the Buddhist cosmic merits. It was about karma, reincarnation, and settling past debts to ascend to a higher form of life.
Which leads us directly into the author's main parallel here. If you walk up to a pig and ask if its life has meaning, it simply won't know, because its perspective is totally trapped inside that sty. It literally cannot comprehend the cosmic purpose of its existence. Xufeng's argument is that we, as humans, are in the exact same boat. If you ask us whether our lives have meaning, we don't really know either. We argue about wealth, status, and financial freedom, exactly like those pigs argued about mud and milk. But ultimately, from our limited little vantage point on Earth, humans just cannot fully grasp the true, potentially cosmic purpose of our own existence.
Section 2. The Lifechanyuan philosophy, a proposed framework.
So if we really are fundamentally blind to our ultimate cosmic purpose, what are we supposed to do? Like, how do we actually live our lives? Well, after exploring these massive questions for over 20 years and writing thousands of articles, the author concludes that the answer lies in what he calls Lifechanyuan and the second home life of Xufeng-style communism. Now, just as an impartial explainer of this source material, it's fascinating to see where his logic lands. Xufeng states he's actually put these specific communal ideas into practice for 17 years. According to his framework, embracing these values is the only reliable way to achieve a truly happy, joyful, free, and fulfilling life. For him, this specific lifestyle acts as a ladder to climb out of our existential pigsty. He believes it offers a structured path that holds the hope of eventually reaching heaven. It is his direct, practiced answer to the tragedies of meaningless wealth and the deep confusion of being human.
And that leaves us right here, with one final, deeply provocative question to chew on. This source material took us from the heartbreaking reality of a billionaire megastar all the way through a wild cosmic parable about oblivious pigs to land on a highly specific communal philosophy. But the core challenge is still sitting right in front of us. If those pigs are totally trapped in their sty, completely unable to comprehend their actual purpose in the grand scheme of the universe, can we? Are we really any different? It's definitely something profound to think about the next time you find yourself stressing out over traditional markers of success. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a totally new perspective today.